Welcome, welcome to the first episode of Get Talking, Get Tested. I'm Wesley Williams, your host, and joining me this evening is Cedric Gum from Bryan, Arkansas. Is that correct, Cedric?
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah. 24 years old, diagnosed with HIV just in 2012. And tonight we're going to hear from him. We're going to hear his story, ask him some questions about what it's been like for him living with HIV. And Cedric, first of all, why don't you tell us about who you are and where you come from?
I was born and raised small town here in Arkansas. Um, Very close knit family, single parent family, household. Um, After I graduated, went to college, graduated, I moved to Baltimore to do some work, some theater work there. Stayed there for 2 years, and during that 2 year time period is when uh, I was diagnosed, and it was interesting to say the least. Though it was new, of course. So just dealing with it has been a roller coaster.
Growing up, did you have any role models in your life? Anybody that you looked up to?
Um, Two people. One is my mother, and the other one is Kelly Rowland. A lot of people really, well, anybody that knows me knows that I am like obsessed with Kelly Rowland.
Hmm.
And I've always looked up to her simply because I felt that we shared like similar backstories, like as far as our family is concerned, and
Hmm.
just like her just ability to like not give up and not allow other people to dictate her growth as a person and as a woman and as an artist. I love that about her. So I definitely looked up to her growing up. And my mother, like, she's been the ultimate role model for me throughout my entire life. So those are definitely two women that I've looked up to.
Kelly Rowland. I like that because I love Kelly Rowland. Um, Are you involved in like any networks as far as HIV support?
Here,
Yeah, as far as like
in Arkansas, no. When I was in Baltimore, I was. But here in Arkansas, although I try to be, it's very difficult to get people talking about it because it's still something that people are afraid to discuss here. And although, like, I do have
Mhm.
individuals here, that like we get together and we talk about things that we would like to do. However, it's difficult to get the public involved because they are so afraid of being attached to something such as HIV, such as AIDS. Even if it's to bring awareness, they are still too afraid to be a part of something like that. And it's very heartbreaking um, to see people like that because it's like it's something that can change like the world basically, but people are so uneducated about it that they just don't want to be involved.
How big a role do you think stigma plays in being HIV positive and also being African American?
It's huge. But I try to tell people that what they heard or what they knew about it in the 80s, I'm like, it's nothing like that now. And it's
Hmm.
nothing, it's very simple. Like, all someone has to do is sit down and read, or sit down and listen to someone who is knowledgeable about it. And, like, it's that simple to be educated. But people feel that, okay, it was like this, 20, 30 years ago. It's still like that. And I just feel that once people get out of the mindset of they know, you know, that they're right and they know what they know, but no, I just want people to be educated, to educate themselves, to have the desire or the like ability to learn something new because that's what's gonna change the world. People educating themselves.
And that's one of the reasons why we started this show as well, is because we want people to. Our belief at the Black AIDS Partnership is that the more we talk, the more people will learn, and the one step we are closer. Each person that's learning and getting educated about HIV and AIDS, the one step closer we are to becoming uh, zero new infections in the United
Yes.
States. Um, do you think that um, that day will come?
Oh, geez. Um, I do. However, I don't foresee it happening anytime soon.
Hmm.
But I do have the faith that somewhere in the future that a switch or something will go off in everyone's head just to take time to educate themselves. Because I'm like, our generation and the generations that are coming, they, you know, migrate and navigate towards what's popular. So if someone starts a trend, like everyone now is doing this like ice bucket challenge or for whatever reason. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
if we get people to start doing that with HIV/AIDS awareness, and people are going to start doing it. So if we just start doing that more often and getting people, you know, seeing it all the time and getting people to, you know, watch a video or to sit through a seminar just to be educated, I think we can get there. I know we can get there.
Mm. Are you religious or spiritual? Do you go attend church at all?
Oh no, I do not go to church. A lot of, yeah, a lot of people think that, and they always ask me, do I believe in God? And, I believe in what I believe in. I'm not one of the devil worshippers, I should say, but I mean, I have a faith and I stick to it.
Hmm.
But
How did you
yeah, a
find
lot of
out you were
people,
HIV positive?
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. How did you find out you were HIV positive?
Oh, okay. I was in Baltimore. I was sick for a while, but it was during the winter, so I was just brushed it off as it being the flu. Um, However, I started losing a lot of weight. I couldn't eat, like, I literally didn't eat anything for a little bit over a month. And I'm like, okay, something is not right. And
Mhm.
I finally went to the doctor and got an HIV test. And I sat there and talked to the nurse. I'm like panicking because I'm like, okay, although I know it's a possibility, I'm fine. However, it came back positive, and that's when like my world shifted. Like everything changed on that day,
Mhm.
mentally
And
and
over
emotionally.
time, yeah, over over time, how did your feelings change?
Over time, it has gotten a little bit easier. However, I still have my days especially when I'm alone. I do get emotional,
Yep.
um, and it does get hard. That's what I tell people. I always tell people that it's okay to be emotional. Like I personally, I never tell people not to feel emotions or, that it's not the end of the world. Because for some people, like the world that they lived in before they were diagnosed, that world did end. So I'll never tell people
Mm.
that. But I just had to sit myself down and ask myself and remind myself of what I wanted to do with my life. And if I continued on the path and the thought processes that I was having when I first found out, I never would, get back to that place of fulfilling my dreams. So by doing that, I started getting back into the habit of, acting. I started getting back into the habit of cooking and playing sports. So just doing things that make me happy, that's how I started to cope with it.
That's good. How long do you think it takes someone to process a diagnosis?
Oh, that's hard to say because a lot of people, depending on like your background and depending on the type of people you have around you, like that can vary. Like it's really hard to say.
What conditions in your life put you at risk for HIV?
What conditions in my life? When I was active, I wasn't as careful as I should have been. Um, And like growing up, I was never really like I never had that sit down conversation about the birds and the bees. So um my introduction to sex was just experimental. And the more I experimented, the riskier it became. And eventually, um, like the diagnosis came. So I guess I won't say that if I had that conversation that things would be different, but
Yeah.
um I think that a lot of people fail to realize the importance of like having those conversations about safe sex and just educating their children or educating like young adults because we have a lot of like young people, like young teenage mothers and fathers and people who are sexually active. But like those conversations, I feel looking back, like they would have been important to me, and I feel that they are important now.
Hmm. What is the first thing someone should do when they find out they're HIV positive?
The first thing they should do is get into care. Find out, talk to their doctor, and make sure that they are getting into care. That's the most important thing. I can never stress that enough about getting into care and staying in care.
Hmm. And how has HIV changed you?
How has it changed me? It has made me more open. I've not always been a people person, but I've become more social um, in the respect that I want to help people more. I used to have life used to always be about me, but now with my diagnosis, it's like okay, I have to get out of my selfish ways and realize that there are people who either need me, there are people who just want to hear my story or need to hear my story, or there are people out there that just need someone to listen. So I've become aware of the people and things around me. I don't make everything about me as I used to before my
Mhm.
diagnosis.
And to what extent have you experienced stigma since being diagnosed? And how have
Um,
you learned to do?
when I first was diagnosed, and I tried dating, it was really hard. And the first person to accept me, I was grateful for it. However, I was still mentally like frazzled, and like that just he came at a bad time, basically. Um, but when I moved back to Arkansas, like that's like people will ostracize you. Even there are people here who are positive, but they will still ostracize you because they don't want people to know. And that's what I find to be just it's very saddening that they do that because I'm like, okay, I'm in the same predicament as you are. Like you shouldn't, be so, wrapped up or so afraid, to step out or to be a friend to someone who possibly needs you. And
Hmm.
I feel that the South, being back here, that's where a lot of emphasis, not saying that anyone else needs to be deprived, but there should be more emphasis in the South on getting people talking about HIV and AIDS and getting people aware, and making sure that people are knowledgeable and know that it's real. It's out there. And having people like not be so afraid, like it's not the quote unquote death sentence that people attach to it. Like people are living like long and healthy lives with HIV and AIDS. Like no one is this monster that people make them out to be.
Hmm. I want to switch gears here real quick and talk about
Mm-hmm.
HIV in the African American community and get
Mm-hmm.
some of your thoughts. What do you think the biggest challenge facing African Americans today is in terms of HIV?
The biggest challenge.
Mm.
Um, I would definitely have to say the biggest challenge. Oh, that's hard. I thought I had an answer. Um, with the with individuals that I know specifically, I would definitely have to say it's just a desire to, as far as sex is concerned, it's that desire to have that instant like gratification as far as pleasure. So
Yeah,
when that comes about, like, of course, you get so immersed in the satisfaction that you don't think protection. And with that, of course, you run the risk of HIV and other STDs. And
yeah,
that's what I've like experienced. Like that was me, once. And I feel that a lot of individuals, in the African American community and, with our other counterparts as well, that it's all about the satisfaction and not the protection.
yeah. Um, One of the things I think is that communication is important. It has
Hmm.
to do, especially like, um, how can I put it? Getting people talking to each other in relationships, whether
Hmm.
it's with family, social, personal, sexual, whatever. Just communicating with um, whom you are in the African American community with. Um, it's multi-layered because you have the religious church community, especially where you're
Hmm.
in Arkansas.
Oh
It's almost like
yes.
it's the Bible Beltway, you know, South Carolina, and you touched on a very big thing too. Is a lot of funding isn't given to those southern states that really need it. In cities like Atlanta, Little Rock, Charleston, South Carolina, you know, Raleigh, and those areas there. Even when you go further down south, to like Tampa, Miami, you're not seeing as much funding as you do see, for instance, where I'm at in Massachusetts, where we get a
Hmm.
lot of funding, and most of our HIV treatment services are beyond adequate.
Hmm.
They're, you know, so I think that's one of the things we need to focus on too is the African American culture down south, um, keeping people aware and making sure communication is the first line. Because without communication, we're never going to reach zero.
No.
Um, that's what you know. Um, we touched on the risk factors, and so I was wondering what specific aspects of African American culture or identity give you strength as you learn to live with HIV?
I would definitely, with that, I would say that my like the sense of community that exists in certain areas of the African American community, as far as like certain social groups, like that really helps me. I don't know about other individuals, but having those social groups and having people who aren't as narrow-minded, to have those open discussions in those panels, to just talk about, like, that's really really helpful with dealing with HIV, and having friends who are in the field who I can, sit and have those conversations with, who can give me information about, what's going on, and, what's new as far as like studies are concerned, and different medications that are being tested and things like that. So having like that, those individuals in the African American community who have that knowledge, who can feed that knowledge to me so that I can grow in my understanding, and that I can better cope with things that come about. Like, that's very important.
What's the biggest change you'd like to see in HIV prevention or education care for African Americans?
For African Americans, I would definitely like to see, um, and I don't know how possible this is, but I would definitely like to see this taught, whether it be in schools. I know that's probably a little too far-fetched, but I would definitely like to see more emphasis put on that, in health, in science classes, um, because I find it to be more. It's really starting to become like a common theme throughout the country that people tend to keep ignoring and putting on the back burner. I really wish that they could start, like, teaching that, teaching it, like, what it is, what HIV is, how do you get it, like its like effects and symptoms and things like that, because a lot of people are ignoring it. A lot of people are not educated about it. So I really wish that they could just teach it and make it more of a global awareness project, because that would definitely help.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the Obama administration is doing enough as far as the HIV epidemic in the black community?
um, that's funny. They are doing they're doing a decent job. I can't say they aren't. With
Hmm.
the Obamacare, that was really helpful for individuals living with HIV. Um, because it really did, like, HIV medications are expensive. And
Yeah.
for individuals who were coming out of pocket, or for individuals who were struggling to get medications, like the Obamacare was really helpful with alleviating that stressor, um, making sure that they were insured, making sure that their medications were covered, and that was really helpful. So I definitely commend them for that.
Hmm. And I have to agree. I think the Affordable Care Act, in terms of HIV care and treatment, it is working.
Hmm.
In terms of making sure people are insured and getting their medications that are HIV positive, and along with the Affordable Care Act, is the Drug Prescription Assistance Program too, um, and that's working. Um,
Hmm.
so I would have to agree with you that the Obama administration is doing a lot in terms of making sure HIV isn't an issue in healthcare that's put on a back
Right.
burner some, and just forgotten about. Um, what are your fears and hopes for the next generation of African Americans as they face the risks of HIV?
My fear um, is that they become more careless than they are currently.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that they, like I said earlier, that switch or that light goes off, that people just want to become educated about it. Like, I feel that once that happens, like the world will see and feel the change.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this little bucket challenge that I keep going back to, because it's, for me, like I was telling my best friend, I was like, this is, like, I don't talk down on things, but I'm like, okay, if people can do this, and I know a lot of people personally who are just doing it just to make a video, but I'm like, okay, if you can do this to promote something that you know nothing about, like, how can we come together to do a challenge to raise awareness for HIV? How can we raise awareness for, AIDS and, like, other things that are happening in the black community that people are ignoring? Like, how can we do that? But everyone wants to do this challenge. Yeah, that was something that was really bothering me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about HIV healthcare and
Hmm.
treatment. Um, One of the first things you said that people should do when they first get tested and they find out they're HIV positive is get into treatment.
Yes.
How has your experience been with HIV treatment?
Okay. In Baltimore, it was amazing. I got diagnosed. Within, like, that week, I was seeing a doctor, but I didn't start um, medication for like a month and a half after I was diagnosed. But once I made the transition from Baltimore to Arkansas, it was a bit different. Like, the process
Mm-hmm.
of getting into treatment here is a lot different than it was in Baltimore. And there are a lot of individuals who make the process harder than it should be. And I've switched doctors several times. And, like, the ordering of medications is much different and much more complicated than it should be. So my experience in Baltimore was much better than it is in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular health regimen that helps you stay well?
Um, I work out. I try to eat healthy. However, I'm from the South, and it gets pretty difficult to eat healthy and expensive. But I do eat. I take my medicine. I also take vitamins just to compensate for the unhealthy eating sometimes. I try to remain stress free, but with life, sometimes things happen. Um, but yeah, just try to work out, eat healthy, eat right, and keep a calm and level mind. That's what I do. But when things go out of whack, I always go to my music. That always
And music
seems
is
to
what
do the
makes the heart
trick.
beat. So it,
Yeah.
it does.
Kelly
Do
Rowland
you
and
participate in
Brandy.
any Brandy? I like that one. I would
Yes.
try to. Brandy. I guess I'm leaning a little bit more towards Ray J.
Oh, who? Oh, no. Oh,
I think it's because
jeez.
I've always had a crush on Ray J. That's why.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
Um,
no. Oh,
and he's
jeez.
shorter. Um, do you participate in any AIDS service organizations, events, activism, HIV outreach, anything like that?
My outreach and everything that I do personally, I do like via Instagram or Facebook. Um, and there's a support group that I go to. I haven't done anything personally with them yet because I just started going about a month ago. So everything is still being talked about with what we would do publicly with that. But everything that I've been doing since I've been in Arkansas has been via like social media.
Mhm. Um, has being involved in social activities with respect to HIV, has that been helpful in improving your health as well?
To a certain extent, because I see it as if I'm going to go out and speak on it, I need to be presentable. So that means I have to take care of myself mentally and physically. I have to, you know, look as though, I'm taking care of myself because I can't go, you know, out to speak to someone and I'm not looking like I'm taking care of myself because that's gonna like defeat the purpose of me actually speaking on it. So definitely it motivates me to, take care of myself so that I'm able to inspire and motivate other people to take care of themselves who are going through the same thing.
Nice. And how have your relationships with family, friends changed since you were diagnosed?
Um, they've pretty much remained the same. Some have fallen off. Some have improved. But other than that, like they've remained the same. Like we still have our, conversations. And there are times where we talk about HIV, and there are times where we just have like regular conversations about like who's dating and like what's going on in the world. But nothing too outlandish as far as like them ending. But some
Mhm.
have, dwindled, and you have to respect that.
How do you decide whether to disclose your HIV status to someone? And this is a good question because I always get this question when I'm doing speaking engagements and stuff.
hmm
So that's why I kind of threw this in there.
It's weird for me because I tell people, like, if we're having a conversation. Um, just I have a tattoo on my arm of the ribbon with my diagnosis date and some inspirational words. And if someone asks me what it is, I tell them. Or I always, 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 if and when like the time comes for any type of sexual activity, I disclose it. Or if I feel that or if I know that I'm interacting with, someone who's HIV positive, I'll tell them my story, even if they're not. I can still tell my story
Mhm.
because I never know when it'll inspire someone. Because I never know what people are going through. So I'm the type of person that I will willingly just tell you, and like a lot of people don't. And so that question for me is kind of a weird one, a strange one, because I just willingly tell people. Like, I don't have an issue with it anymore.
Mhm. What is the response? What is the best response you've ever gotten from telling someone, and what is the worst response you've ever gotten from telling someone?
The best response I got was from my ex. When I first told him, he was like, well, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna love you anyway. And that was like the best response that I've heard. And the worst response, the worst response I've received when telling someone is, so you have AIDS, you're gonna die. I'm like, no, not really. I have HIV, and we're all gonna die eventually. But yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
worst response that I've received.
and that goes back to that worst response you got. That goes back to education. A lot of
Exactly.
people are so ill-informed. It's crazy. Um,
Hmm.
how did you deal with that worst response?
I laughed. And because it was funny to me. Although it's heartbreaking to see like the ignorance amongst our generation. But I had to take a step back and like, okay, it's not their fault because they haven't been taught. Um,
Yeah.
and so like once I started thinking about it, like I talk to my best friend all the time. I'm like, what is it that I can do to like change this? And it's so difficult when um I don't know, like I know of some resources that are available, but as far as like utilizing those resources to make like the impact that I'm trying to make, like that takes time. And my thing is I don't plan to be in Arkansas that long, but I still plan to make a difference before I leave. But yeah, my reaction, I laughed, but then I had to think that although I'm laughing and I'm hurting at the same time, I have to do something
Hmm.
to change like people's perception and people's reaction to someone telling them that they have HIV.
Yeah. And by coming on tonight's show, is also that's what you're helping to do too,
Hmm.
because people that listen to your story, to what you have to say, um, it's going to help them. You know. Um, so, um,
That's my goal.
wh- where do you go for support?
Where do I go? I call my friends. Um, I have two, well, I have three best friends that I call. And when they are with their partners or other friends, I'm alone with my
Mhm.
music, or I go to the gym, or when the group that I just recently started going to, when they meet or when they have an outing,
Mhm.
I go there.
And I'm not gonna keep you too much longer here.
Hmm.
Um, do you have a policy about if or when you tell a sex partner that you are positive?
Oh, I always tell, like, if I even feel that the conversation is like going towards sex, it'll be like, oh, I'm HIV positive. Like, I tell them, like, it's like that's
Hmm.
always like it's not a conversation starter, but it's always included within the first probably 15 minutes if I feel that it's leading towards sex.
Yeah,
And then after that, like no one really wants to do it anymore, which I find to be really strange.
yeah. And do you feel that if you practice safe sex, it is necessary to tell a sex partner that you are positive?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel that any type of intercourse, whether it be protected or not, requires you to disclose your status.
Hmm.
Because you never know. Like something could break or something could, not be right in those areas down there, and like someone could get infected. Like it's important. It's vital that you disclose whether you protect yourself or not.
Yes. Uh, what's the biggest adventure you've ever had?
The biggest adventure,
Yeah.
driving from Arkansas to Baltimore.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's an adventure.
It was horrible. I like 19 hours in a car by myself. It was horrible.
Wow.
But yeah, I did it and I tried to make a life for myself and I was alone.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna do more of that one day when I get settled.
If you were granted one wish, what would it be?
Oh, jeez. If I were granted one wish, it would be, oh gosh, to be on stage performing with Kelly Rowland.
I was kind of leaning to say you were gonna say that. I was like, Kelly Rowland can pop up
Yes.
here.
Yes. Yes. I met her once, but I want to like be on stage performing with her.
Hmm.
Like a Romeo and Juliet type thing. That would be awesome.
There you go. Books, movies, music, or TV shows that have had a big influence on you?
um, a book that I recently read was For Colored Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Still Not Enough. That book changed my life. Just hearing the stories of the individuals that went through the things that they went through,
Hmm.
whether it be like abuse or HIV and AIDS, like just that was just, yeah, I loved that book. TV shows, The Golden Girls, ironically, they had episodes where it talked about like HIV and AIDS and talked about being gay and talked about just like having those close relationships when you really need
Yeah.
someone. So I never understood why I liked that show so much. But once I was diagnosed and started watching them, I was like, okay, things make sense now.
Mhm.
Because they're underneath the sarcasm and underneath, you know, the cheesecakes, there was always a message
Yes.
in every episode. So I definitely say that that show is my all-time favorite show.
Hmm.
But movies, I watch too many movies. Oh God.
That's never a bad thing, though.
It is a bad thing because I start quoting movies. I can never have like friends over because I start quoting movies and then they get annoyed. It's yeah, it's bad.
Next time I'm in Arkansas, we'll have to meet up and quote some movies together.
Oh geez, just as long as it's not What's Love Got to Do with It or The Temptations or
Anything,
Norbit.
anything, anything else you'd like our viewers, our listeners to know about you?
About me, yeah, I'm just a little country boy in Arkansas like that wants to change the world one person at a time.
And in closing,
Hopefully.
in closing tonight, I just gotta say I love your tattoo. Um,
Oh, thank you.
it made me think about getting one.
Oh, really?
It did. It did. Um, and
Oh, that's
I
one
want
person.
to.
Hey.
I want to invite you to come back on and invite you to come with me when I go to get that tattoo.
Oh, really? You
Um,
should come to Arkansas and get it. I can take you where I got mine. I can probably get you a discount.
Definitely. Okay. So I want to thank you for coming on. I know you've
Nope.
been at work all day, so I'll let you get some sleep now. And be sure to anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to talk, just send me a hit up on Facebook
Okay.
and send me that name of that book that you just read, and we'll put that up on Facebook too, and we'll put that up on our blog as well.
Okay, awesome. I surely will.
Until next time, folks, remember not to be perfect, but to be whole. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight and for those who listen in the future. And don't forget to head over to Facebook and like the Black AIDS Partnership. And remember, the only way we're going to start to reach that goal of zero new infections in the African American community is by talking and encouraging folks to get tested. Let's do this together.